In this video, I'll discuss the pen tools in Adobe InDesign CC 2015. When you're designing publications, there are going to come times when you need to create some sort of graphic asset. Now, you do have the straight line tool and the shape tools like the rectangle, the circle, and the polygon, but often you are going to encounter some situation where you're going to need to use irregular shapes. That's where the pen tool comes in. It's right here on the toolbox. And you can use P on the keyboard to activate it. Now, notice in the lower right-hand corner how there's a triangle. That means it's a group, and if I click and hold that, you can see we have four tools: the pen tool, the add anchor point tool, the delete anchor point tool, and the convert direction point tool. So you have to start with the pen tool. You have to create something before you can add, delete, or convert. I'll go ahead and select that, and notice how the mouse cursor has changed to a pen nib with an asterisk next to it. I'll click and release, and notice how I've created an anchor point. Now I'm going to move the mouse up here and click and release again, and there's a line drawn between the 2 points. I'll move the mouse down here and click and create a new anchor point, and again there's a line drawn, and keep doing it to illustrate how that pen tool works. Now, the other tools, let's take a look at the add and delete tools first. So I'll choose the add anchor point tool, hover over the line anywhere that's not an anchor point, and notice how there's a plus sign now next to the pen nib. So when I click, I can add an anchor point. You can see that anchor point being added. I'll do that again. I'll click up here and add an anchor point. And the same thing with the delete anchor point tool. So I'll go ahead and select that. And right here, I'll go ahead and click and delete. And again, notice how there's a minus sign next to the pen nib and delete. So you can add and delete the anchor points using that method. But here's the thing. Let me go back to the pen tool for a second. If I hover over anywhere on my selected object, notice how the pen nib changes to a plus sign rather than an asterisk, meaning I can add by clicking just by doing that. And if I hover over an existing anchor point, notice how the pen nib changes and there's a minus sign, so I can click and delete. So you don't need to change to those add and delete tools in order to modify this. Just keep in mind that you can just hover over and click to delete an existing one, or click where there's not an anchor point and add one. Now, if you need to modify this, let's go ahead and hold down the Control key. And I'll select this anchor point. And again, notice how that mouse cursor has changed to an arrow with a little anchor point indicator next to it. And that means I can click and drag and modify the shape. Now notice how the entire shape is changing because all these anchor points are selected. So if I just Control click to select this and then highlight just this node and click and drag, and it's a little bit tricky. It's a fine thing that you have to do here, but holding down Control, I can modify anchor points one by one, or I can select multiple anchor points. And again, this is all while holding down Control. I can modify portions of the shape. So that's important to know. And finally, there's the Convert Direction Point tool. Now, this is a little bit different in that when you click over a node, and notice how we've got sort of an angled mouse cursor there. When I click and drag, I can convert these nodes to curves. And as I click and drag, you can see a Bezier curve, meaning we have a point here and a point here, allowing us to convert this to curves. I'll show you on this one as well. I'll click and drag to change the shape, and you can change the length of the curve and the points of the curve. You can modify just one side of it very easily using that tool. Now keep in mind that if you've got the pen tool selected, and I'll select this one right here, if I hold down Alt, notice how the mouse cursor has changed to that anchor point direction tool. So you can do everything I just showed you by using the keyboard with the Alt key, for example, to convert to curves. And then if you don't use the keyboard, just hovering over a point and clicking where an anchor point doesn't exist, or hovering over a point where an anchor point exists and clicking to delete it. Very useful, a great way to be able to draw irregular shapes in InDesign and flex your creativity. And it just takes a little bit of work getting used to, but once you do, I think you'll find these tools extremely helpful.